1977, a young female officer from a quiet coastal town in California vanished during a routine night patrol without leaving a trace. Most people assumed she had simply walked away from the job, until 13 years later when a fisherman made a chilling discovery at the base of a remote cliff. What he found rising from the ocean would unravel the dark truth behind that night. It was a foggy morning in Pacifica, California, March of 1990. A heavy mist clung to the cliffs like a warning no one could read. At home, Sergeant Jack Monroe was reaching for his second cup of coffee when his police radio crackled to life. "Unit 23, this is dispatch. We've got a 1054 at Devil's Slide. Fisherman reports what might be a patrol vehicle at the bottom of the cliff. Immediate response requested." Jack froze mid-motion, hand still near the toast. Devil's Slide. That deadly stretch of Highway 1 where the mountains plunged straight into the Pacific. He'd driven that route for over 2 decades, but something about this call made his heart race. "Unit 23 responding," he said, grabbing his jacket and heading for his car. The coffee stayed on the counter, forgotten. Before he could pull out of the driveway, a familiar voice crackled through the speaker again. Detective Maria Strada. "Jack, I'm already en route. Helicopter's been dispatched. Meet me at the north observation point." "What are we looking at?" he asked. "Old cruiser, badly damaged," she replied. Dispatch ran the numbers. There's only one missing unit unaccounted for in the past 20 years. Jack didn't need her to say the name. He already knew. Laura, his wife, gone without explanation during her patrol in 1977. Her squad car disappeared along with her. 13 years of silence. The drive to Devil's Slide took exactly 9 minutes and 37 seconds. He counted every one. Memories he'd tried to bury came flooding back. Laura in uniform, her badge catching the light, the soft kiss goodbye, her promise to be careful, the bed that stayed empty that night. When he arrived, the cliffside was already lined with patrol cars, red and blue lights cutting through the fog like warning flares. Yellow tape kept the crowd back as officers leaned over the guardrail, staring down into the surf. He found Maria immediately, her hair pulled back tight, her badge glinting in the mist. "Jack," she said softly, "you need to brace yourself. The coroner's already on the way." He stepped forward. Below, half swallowed by rock and sea, lay the crumpled remains of a patrol car. Even from up high, the rust was clear, whole sections eaten away, the roof crushed inward by years of ocean waves. Then came the deep hum of rotor blades, the rescue chopper. It hovered overhead as the Coast Guard team began to descend the cliffside with ropes and harnesses. On shore, the fisherman stood quietly nearby, visibly shaken. Jack approached him. "You found it?" The man nodded. "Been fishing these waters 30 years. That car wasn't there last week. Storm must have knocked it loose. When the sun hit the bumper this morning, I just knew something was wrong." "You did the right thing calling it in," Maria said gently. As the fisherman described what he saw, Jack watched the rescue team attach thick cables to the car's rusted frame. The lift was delicate. One wrong move, and the whole thing could fall apart. Then came the call. "Lifting now." Everyone fell silent as the cables grew tense. Slowly, the wreck began to rise from the cliffside. Water poured from shattered windows, and rusted debris tumbled onto the rocks below. Jack held his breath as the car cleared the edge, finally placed on the flat ground above. Up close, the damage was worse than he imagined. The vehicle, a 1975 Plymouth Fury, was nearly unrecognizable. Entire panels had been eaten away. Barnacles clung to the underside like armor. The forensics team moved in quickly, documenting everything. Jack stayed back, forcing himself not to interfere, even as every instinct told him to tear the doors open. One of the technicians crouched near the bumper. "License plate is still partially legible," he called out. "Running it now." Maria placed a hand on Jack's shoulder. "You don't have to stay for this." "Yes, I do," he said quietly. Moments later, the tech with the laptop looked up, his face pale. "VIN matches. This is Officer Laura Monroe's patrol unit." The word vehicle hit Jack like a punch to the chest. He'd known, felt it deep down from the second he heard the call, but hearing it confirmed was something else entirely. 13 years of not knowing. 13 years of questions without answers. Now, finally, there was proof that something had gone terribly wrong that night. When the lead forensic tech opened the driver's door, the entire panel came off in his hands. The hinges had long since given in to the rust. Inside, the car was a dark, decaying cavern. The seats had rotted down to bare springs. The dashboard had been eaten away by time and salt. "No visible remains," the tech called out, and Jack let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He didn't know whether it was relief or sorrow. The team continued their careful search. Piece by piece, personal effects surfaced, like relics pulled from a forgotten tomb. A flashlight, its batteries long since corroded. A citation book, its pages fused into a solid block. And then, under the driver's seat, something more disturbing, a brass shell casing. .40 caliber, the tech noted, standard department issue. Blood, another voice came from the rear of the vehicle. Degraded, but definitely present, under the back seat. They moved to the trunk next. A flashlight swept over the rusted interior. Significant traces here, too. Before anyone could respond, a new voice cut through the fog. "What the hell is going on here?" It was Richard Hensley, the department supervisor, stepping past the tape like he still ran the place. And in many ways, he still did. Hensley had also been Laura's supervisor back in '77. He was older now, heavier around the middle, but still carried himself like someone who expected to be followed. "Richard," Marie said as he approached, "we've confirmed it's Laura Monroe's unit." His face shifted through a series of emotions before settling into an expression of concern. "After all this time," he murmured, turning to Jack. "You shouldn't be here." "I'm fine." The forensic lead summarized the findings so far. Blood in multiple locations. No recording devices recovered, likely destroyed, but this is clearly a crime scene. Hensley rubbed his jaw. "Let's not jump to conclusions. That blood could belong to anyone. For all we know, Laura could have gotten involved in something, things went wrong, maybe even fired her weapon and left the vehicle." "That's not who she was," Jack said flatly. "She wouldn't do that." 13 years is a long time," Hensley replied, his voice steady but cool. "People can surprise us." Before Jack could answer, Marie stepped in. "We need DNA testing on those samples. It's new tech, but necessary." "Approved," Hensley nodded. "We treat this like a serious investigation, no shortcuts." He glanced around. Media's going to jump on this fast. As if on cue, the first news van rolled into view, then another. Within minutes, reporters were lining the tape, cameras aimed directly at the wreck. Jack barely realized he'd stepped into their path until the microphones were in his face. "Sergeant Monroe, how does it feel to finally get answers about your wife? Is it true Officer Monroe was under investigation before she vanished? Do you believe she was harmed?" He straightened, his voice calm and clear. Officer Laura Monroe was a respected member of this department. She had just been promoted to sergeant when she disappeared in 1977. She was dedicated, honest, and served this town with everything she had. Now that her patrol unit has been recovered, we will investigate what happened. With professionalism and integrity, this community deserves the truth, and so does she. More questions followed, but Marie gently guided him away. Behind them, the forensic team continued their work, carefully tagging every fragment of evidence. "You did good," Marie said as they reached his patrol car. "Now go home. Take a breather." Hensley appeared beside them. "She's right. You're too close to this, Jack. Let us take it from here." "I can handle it," Jack insisted. "No," Hensley said, his voice lowering. "That's not a criticism. It's a fact. You're emotionally involved. You can't lead this one." Marie gave a reluctant nod. "I'll take over, personally. I'll work with the team and keep you updated." Jack looked between them, then back at the rusted shell of Laura's cruiser. After so long, answers were finally coming to light. But they were right. He was too close, too raw. I've still got copies of the original files at home, he said quietly. I'll review them. Maybe there's something we missed back then. That's fine, Hensley replied. Just don't go playing solo investigator. Marie walked him to his car. I'll pull the logs from 77. The rosters, shift reports, everything. We'll figure this out. Then, almost as if the words escaped on their own, Jack said, Someone did this to her. We don't know that, Marie said gently. There was blood in the backseat, and a bullet. Her silence said more than any reply could. The shell casing. What else could it be? Marie's expression was calm, professional, but Jack could see the weight behind her eyes. We follow the evidence, she said softly. That's all we can do. Jack climbed into his patrol car, started the engine, and sat for a moment. In the mirror, the forensics team was still at work, circling the rusted ghost of a life frozen in time. The past had finally surfaced, dragged from the waves and into the light. He shifted into drive and headed home, his thoughts already turning toward the files he'd kept tucked away for years. His house sat in a quiet Pacifica neighborhood, 2 stories, modest, surrounded by others like it. The kind of place teachers, nurses, and officers called home. He walked through the door without even taking off his jacket and headed straight to his office. On the top shelf of the closet was the box. He hadn't touched it in 5 years. Brown cardboard, marked in black ink. L. Monroe, 1977. He carried it to the floor and sat cross-legged, spreading the contents around him like puzzle pieces that had never fit. Laura's personnel photo stared up at him, her hair styled in soft waves, blue eyes filled with pride, just 2 weeks before she vanished. He picked up the logbook copies and traced his finger over her handwriting. 2,000 hours, beginning patrol, Sector 7. Then, 2015, routine traffic stop, Highway 1, mile marker 42. Warning issued. That was it. Nothing else. No distress call, no backup request. Just silence. He shuffled through witness statements. Her partner, Officer Patricia Hriss, had said she last saw Laura at 8 p.m., heading out alone, upbeat, talking about catching a movie after her shift. 2 civilians had reported seeing a patrol car, but couldn't say for sure it was Laura's. Frustratingly thin, Jack leaned back against the wall. She wouldn't have driven off Devil's Slide, not by choice. It wasn't just unlikely. Logistically, it didn't make sense. Someone else had to be involved. His eyes landed on the duty roster. Patricia was listed, of course, but so was another name. Deputy Carl Bowen, night shift supervisor. He'd signed off on the logbook that night. Jack grabbed his phone and dialed Marie. She answered quickly. Jack, I'm almost back at the station. Richard's already there. Forensics team is still working. I need a favor. Carl Bowen signed the log the night Laura disappeared. Do you know where he is now? Transferred to San Mateo about 8 years back. Why? I want to speak to him. Can you get a contact number? I'll look him up when I get in. You coming by? On my way. Jack returned the papers to the box and stood. The house felt heavy, still, like it was holding its breath. But instead of turning toward the station, he found himself driving south, down the same highway Laura had patrolled. 20 minutes later, he pulled over at mile marker 42, the site of her last reported stop. The wind hadn't changed in 13 years. Scrub brush bent in long, tired waves, and the Pacific stretched endlessly to the west. Inland, the old industrial docks of Moss Landing sat rusted and tired. They'd searched those buildings in 77, found nothing. But why had Laura come here alone that night? After dark, officers were supposed to work in pairs, especially in isolated areas. He was turning back to his car when he heard the low growl of tires on pavement. Another patrol cruiser slowed as it passed, then pulled over. The driver's window rolled down, and Jack found himself face to face with someone he hadn't seen in over a decade. Jack Monroe, that you? Carl Bowen. He'd aged, sure, his hair now gray, but still looked sharp, alert, in full uniform with a San Mateo County patch on his shoulder. The same confident presence. Carl, what are the odds? I was just thinking about you. Yeah, Heard about this morning, Carl replied, voice neutral. They really found her car? Jack nodded. At Devil's Slide. I came here to check her last known location. Carl gave a slow nod. Terrible thing. After all this time, he glanced at his watch. I'm tight on time today, patrolling near San Pedro, but we should catch up. Coffee sometime? Actually, Jack said, watching him closely, I wanted to ask you about the log from that night. You signed off on it. Carl's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. That was 13 years ago, Jack. But yeah, I remember. Everything checked out. Routine. He shifted the car into drive. Call me sometime. We'll talk more. He gave a brief wave and drove off, disappearing down the bend. Jack stood by the roadside a moment longer, then returned to his own car. As he turned the key, the radio came on, playing a replay of his morning interview. Officer Laura Monroe was a dedicated member of this department. His own voice filled the cabin, echoing back at him. And that's when the thought hit. Cold and sharp, Laura had just been promoted. A young, ambitious officer. Alone that night. Ambitious. That's what Laura was. Ambitious in a department still run by old-school rules, where tradition held tight and change didn't always come easy. Jack had worked there long enough to know how unforgiving the culture could be. Some officers didn't like when someone climbed the ladder quickly, especially if that someone was young, sharp, and female. He tried to push those thoughts away. These were his colleagues, people he'd trusted with his life. But the questions kept rising. Why had Laura been alone that night? Who assigned her to such a remote patrol route? Jack pressed harder on the gas. He needed answers, and he wasn't going to stop until he had them. The Pacifica police station was half empty when Jack pulled in. The afternoon shift hadn't started yet. He was about to open his door when movement caught his attention. Richard Hensley, pacing behind the station, phone to his ear. Even from a distance, Jack could see the tension in every step, sharp, erratic movements, his free hand gesturing with frustration. Then Jack heard it. Car came up, your job, move now. The words cut through the quiet parking lot like a warning. Jack froze, hand on the door handle. Hensley's tone was urgent, more than that, desperate. He stepped out silently, shutting the door behind him. Richard must have sensed him, because he turned quickly, eyes going wide. Shock flickered across his face, followed by something else. Hesitation. Jack, Richard called, forcing a smile. What are you doing here? Thought I told you to take a few days. Jack walked over, keeping his face unreadable. Tried? Didn't work? Was that call about Laura's case? Richard shifted uncomfortably, slipping his phone into his pocket. That? Nah, just logistics. The sheriff's evidence yard is on me about moving her patrol unit. You know how it goes. Car's been in saltwater over a decade. Environmental protocols, disposal issues, EPA's breathing down our necks. I was just lighting a fire under the transport company. He laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes. Jack nodded. It made sense. Bureaucracy never slept, and moving contaminated evidence was a nightmare. Still, something about Richard's tone didn't sit right. Richard wiped his forehead despite the chilly breeze. Come on, let's get inside. They entered the station together. The bullpen buzzed softly with the usual controlled chaos. Phones ringing, printers humming, low voices exchanging case details. Jack spotted Marie near the evidence room, deep in conversation with two forensic techs. She held up a finger when he approached. Degraded samples are always tricky, one of the techs said. This DNA testing needs high-quality material. 13 years underwater. Salt, bacteria, rust, none of that helps. We'll be lucky to get viable results. It could take weeks, maybe longer. Marie asked, No way to speed that up. Not without compromising everything. We know there's blood, that's confirmed, but extracting enough clean genetic material to run a match? That's the hard part. Jack felt the pressure building. Without DNA, they couldn't even confirm that Laura had been in the car when it crashed. No remains, just a shell casing and traces of blood. What about the bullet? Marie asked. The second tech consulted his notes. That's more promising. .40 caliber, same ammo the department issued in '77. Grain weight and manufacturer match. If she discharged her weapon that night, this could be from it. Jack closed his eyes. Laura's blood, Laura's weapon, or someone else's. The possibilities spun in circles. When he looked up, he saw Richard disappearing down the hallway, his walk uneven. Marie joined him. Sorry about the delay. You good? I need to speak to Richard about Carl Bowen. Bowen? I ran into him today, right along Laura's last patrol stretch. Marie raised an eyebrow. Seriously? My thoughts exactly. Jack nodded. I'll fill you in after. He turned and headed down the hall, stopping at Richard's office door. It's Jack. Come in. He opened the door and found Richard at his desk, quickly closing a drawer and tossing back a glass of water, swallowing what looked like pills. Blood pressure meds, Richard offered, unprompted. This case is a lot. Jack stepped inside. I told you I couldn't stay away. I need to talk to you about Carl Bowen. Richard's expression tightened. What about him? I saw him today. Same stretch of road where Laura's last stop was logged. He was the night shift supervisor. He signed off on her patrol log the night she vanished. Richard gave a quick shrug. Someone had to. What are you saying? Jack's eyes narrowed slightly. If something happened that night, something bad, Laura would have reported it. She would have called it in. She was too sharp not to. Cops don't just go silent. Not like that. Not without calling it in. Not without backup. And yet, after 8:15 p.m. on Laura's log, there was nothing. No alert, no last words. Just a blank space where a life used to be. Richard leaned forward, rubbing both temples with shaking hands. That's why everyone assumed she just left. No distress call, no sign of struggle, no witnesses. It didn't make sense, but there was nothing else to go on. Jack kept his tone level. But now we have blood and a casing. Richard's posture changed instantly. His voice turned sharper, more defensive. You're chasing ghosts. Carl Bowen's a solid cop. You want to throw suspicion around based on a signature from a logbook written 13 years ago? I'm not accusing anyone, Jack replied. I just want the full picture. Richard stood abruptly, grabbing his desk for balance as he swayed slightly. I need to check on the transport, he said quickly. Make sure Laura's patrol unit gets to the evidence yard. We can't afford any mistakes. He stepped toward the door but stumbled. Jack caught him by the arm. His skin felt cold, damp through his shirt sleeve. Richard, are you okay? You look... I'm fine, he interrupted, pulling away with a shaky laugh. Just my wife's new diet. Low sugar, lots of stress, bad combo. Jack didn't believe him, not entirely. Especially when Richard forgot to lock his office door, or when he nearly walked face first into the glass door on his way out. Something was off. Before Jack could dwell on it, Marie appeared beside him. My office now. Inside, she closed the door and pulled a document from her desk. I went digging through old files, she said. Came across this, misfiled. Jack took it. A typed witness statement. No signature, no stamp. But the details hit hard. It described a patrol car and a white van spotted on Devil's Slide the night Laura vanished. This wasn't in her case file? No, Marie said. It was hidden in a completely unrelated burglary report, 3 months after Laura disappeared. Jack flipped through the original file. The burglary had nothing to do with that night. Why not destroy it, he asked. Why hide it like this? Maybe someone wanted insurance, a story they could control, or maybe they just forgot it was there. She paused. Either way, someone in this department buried it. Jack checked the witness's name, Belinda Carlson. That name, I know it. I pulled the official statement too, Marie said, handing him another file. This version? It's signed, stamped, and says she saw nothing. 2 statements. Same person. Completely different accounts. She's still local, Jack said, checking the address. Fairmont neighborhood. I'll come with you, Marie said. Something tells me Miss Carlson has more to say. They left the station, tension crackling in the silence. Jack tried calling Belinda on the way. 4 rings. No answer. Line's dead, he muttered. Could be disconnected. House is only 5 minutes out, Marie replied, turning down Monterey Road. Fairmont was quiet. Rows of aging homes, small lawns, and sun-faded paint. As they turned onto Belinda Street, Jack read off house numbers. "There," he pointed, 2851. Marie slowed to a stop, then her eyes narrowed. "Look." A familiar car was parked at the curb, a department-issued sedan, and on the porch stood Richard Hensley. He wasn't alone. A woman, early 40s, stood in front of him, arms crossed in a defensive posture. From a distance, Jack could see the tension in her body. Richard leaned in, jabbing his finger toward her. Not a friendly conversation. "That's her," Jack said. "That's Belinda." Richard pulled something from his coat, a thick envelope, and pressed it into her hands. He leaned in, said something low. She flinched. "That doesn't look like an official interview," Marie said, her voice cold. As Richard turned and walked back to his car, Jack and Marie ducked low in their seats. He didn't seem to notice them as he drove past. Belinda disappeared into the house, clutching the envelope like it was burning her fingers. Marie exhaled. This just got interesting. They waited a beat, then approached the house on foot. The porch was cluttered with tools, oil stains spread across the driveway. Jack knocked firmly. The door swung open almost immediately. Her face was flushed, eyes red. "What now?" she snapped, then stopped. Her expression shifted when she realized they weren't who she expected. "Miss Carlson," Jack said calmly, showing his badge. "I'm Sergeant Monroe. This is Detective Estrada, Pacifica PD. Her anger turned to confusion, and then something else. Unease. I don't know what this is about." "We'd like to talk," Jack said, "about a statement you gave in 1977. "I don't have anything to say," she replied, already starting to close the door. Marie stepped forward, her voice steady. "We just saw you speaking to our supervisor, Richard Hensley. He didn't log this visit with us. We're investigating the same case, and we really need to hear your side. Now." Belinda's face drained of color. Her eyes darted between Jack, Marie, and the documents in his hands. "I don't understand what you mean," she said, her voice tight. Jack held up both witness statements, the original and the altered version. "We need you to explain these," he said gently. For a long moment, Belinda stared at the papers. Then her shoulders dropped and she gave a tired sigh. "Fine," she muttered. "Come in, but this is the last time I'm talking about any of this." The living room was small but neatly kept, filled with framed photographs and the kind of worn furniture that told stories of quieter years. Belinda gestured toward the couch while she sank into a recliner, still clutching the envelope Richard had given her. "I don't know what you expect me to say," she began, eyes down. "The truth," Marie replied calmly. "We know you gave 2 conflicting statements about the night Officer Laura Monroe disappeared. We need to know what really happened." Belinda let out a bitter laugh. "The truth? After 13 years?" She rubbed her face with both hands. "I'm tired of carrying this, tired of the guilt." Jack leaned forward. "Then help us understand. You don't have to keep this to yourself anymore." Belinda looked down at the envelope in her lap. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was barely a whisper. "I was driving to work that night, November 18th, 1977. I was a park ranger at San Pedro Valley Park covering the evening shift. Around 8:30, I passed Devil's Slide Road. That's when I saw her, a female officer, alone, pulling over a white van." She paused, lost in the memory. "I didn't think much of it. Officers stop drivers all the time, right? So I kept going." "Can you describe the van?" Marie asked, her pen already moving. "Older model, white, no back windows, the kind contractors use, maybe early 70s. She shifted in her seat. "It was a slow night at work. I was bored. So around 10 I called my husband and asked him to come by. We met up at the park." She hesitated, then added, "We were young, married, looking for some privacy. You get the idea." "What happened next?" Jack asked. "We heard something, a sound, maybe a yell, maybe a scream. It was hard to tell. The park's huge, and at night, with the wind and trees, it echoes. We walked around for 15 minutes or so, but didn't see anything. What time would you say that was? Maybe 11:30? Closer to midnight? I didn't check my watch. And after that? When I headed back around 12:30, I saw that same white van driving out of the park. I'm sure it was the same one. It had a dent on the rear panel, passenger side, shaped like a crescent. You're certain? Marie asked. Absolutely. Jack and Marie exchanged glances. And you reported this? Jack pressed. Belinda's face crumpled. I tried. The next day, when I heard about the missing officer, I went straight to the station. I gave my statement, but then Richard Hensley stepped in. She held up the envelope. Take it. I'm done. Jack opened it. Inside, $3,000 in small, worn bills. He paid you? He asked, though the answer was obvious. Belinda nodded, shame flooding her expression. He said my statement was unclear, confusing, that it would complicate things. Told me to keep it simple. Just say I saw nothing. Marie's voice was quiet but firm. That's not all, is it? Tears welled in Belinda's eyes. A week later, my boss at the park got an anonymous complaint about me and my husband meeting up that night. I was fired for misconduct. After that, I couldn't get another ranger job anywhere. Hensley made sure of it. Jack felt his hands tighten into fists. I took over my dad's garage after that, barely got by, and every few months, Hensley would show up with another envelope. For your continued discretion, he'd say. Marie stood. Miss Carlson, we need you to come to the station and make an official statement. Help us hold Hensley accountable. Belinda shook her head instantly. Number, you saw him here today. He knows something's going on. I can't risk it. My father's still sick, and my husband left. Said it was my fault. If Hensley decides to finish what he started, we have nothing left. Jack wanted to argue, but he understood. He'd seen how the system could silence people, how fear could outlast facts. Belinda's voice was steady now. Find more. Find real evidence. Something even he can't talk his way out of. Then I'll testify, but not before. Back in the car, Jack leaned back against the seat, exhausted. She's right, he muttered. Her word against Hensley's won't be enough. But now we know there's something there, Marie said, turning the key. A white van, a noise in the woods, a cover-up. Then Jack sat up straight. Carl Bowen. He told me he was patrolling San Pedro Valley Park today. Same place Belinda worked. Same night. Marie's eyes narrowed, gears turning. That can't be a coincidence? Jack's voice was steady. Let's find out what Officer Bowen is really up to. As the unmarked Crown Victoria turned toward the winding park roads, the silence between them held a single, sharp truth. This wasn't just about Laura anymore. Before them stretched a vast expanse of coastal hills and towering redwoods, rising from the edge of the Pacific and climbing toward the Santa Cruz Mountains. Marie guided the unmarked Crown Victoria into the main lot, filtered sunlight casting flickers of gold through the eucalyptus trees lining the entrance. There, Jack said, sharp and low. Richard's car. The supervisor's sedan sat near the ranger station. Next to it, the same black and white patrol cruiser Jack had seen that morning. He checked the plate to be sure. Bowen's unit, he confirmed. Marie scanned the lot. We need to stay out of sight. She maneuvered the vehicle between a van and a pickup, half concealed by thick branches. From this spot, they had a clear view of both vehicles without being seen. Jack grabbed a park trail map from a nearby visitor box as they exited. The layout was overwhelming. Trails like spider webs, winding across thousands of acres. Hazelnut Trail, Weiler Ranch Road, Middle Peak. Looking for anything out here would be like trying to track a shadow in the fog. We can't just walk aimlessly and hope. Marie raised a finger to her lips, cutting him off. She pointed through the trees. Two figures emerged from a trailhead about 50 yards away. Richard Hensley, still wearing a suit despite the terrain, and Carl Bowen, dressed in his San Mateo County uniform. Carl carried a shovel and a heavy gear bag. Richard held a large industrial-grade black plastic bag, the kind used for construction debris. They were moving fast, purposeful. Richard looked winded and agitated, though he kept his voice low. Jack and Marie crept closer, keeping to the tree line. I told you this wasn't necessary, Carl said, dropping the shovel beside his patrol vehicle. Richard popped his trunk, carefully setting the plastic bag inside a wooden crate. Not necessary? Did you hear Monroe this morning? They found the car, Carl. The car... Carl heaved the gear bag into his cruiser. So what? It's been 13 years. There's nothing left. There's blood, Richard snapped. There's a casing, and have you seen how accurate that DNA stuff is now? Carl scoffed. If anything's left, it's bones. That body's been in the ground for over a decade. No one's going to find it. Not up at Middle Peak. 2 miles into the wilderness. Hiking-only trail. Jack watched as Richard moved the crate into Carl's trunk. Even in his panic, he handled it with care. If they match the blood to Laura, Richard growled, you know what comes next. They'll go looking. They'll talk to Carlson, the other park staff. If one person breaks... He didn't finish the sentence. Carl rubbed the back of his neck, grimacing. Fine, but where am I supposed to take it? I can't just drive around with this in my trunk. Somewhere secure, somewhere I don't even know about. So if this blows up, you can pass a polygraph. Carl paused, thinking. What about the place near those people? You know, the business partners. If anyone finds it, the heat falls on them, not us. For the first time, Richard almost smiled. Now you're thinking. Just get it done. And Carl, make sure no one sees you. The trunk slammed shut. Richard got into his sedan, Carl into his cruiser. Jack and Marie backed away, deeper into the trees as both vehicles pulled off. Richard turned left, back toward town. Carl veered right, heading north along the coastal road. Back at their car, Marie slid behind the wheel before Jack had even closed the door. She waited 30 seconds before starting the engine. Thank God we didn't have to hike Middle Peak, she muttered, keeping Carl's vehicle in view. We'd have been out there for hours. Jack's voice was quiet. That has to be Laura, in that bag. We don't know for sure, Marie said, though her tone said otherwise. But whatever's in that crate, they're terrified it'll be found. They followed Carl north along Highway 1, past Devil's Slide, the very road where this had all begun. Jack stared at the patrol car ahead, thoughts racing. Those people, he said, the ones Carl mentioned, business partners. What kind of business are we talking about here? At the intersection with Highway 92, Richard's prediction came true. His sedan turned inland toward Pacifica, but Carl kept going north. He's really doing it, Marie said, transporting evidence in a marked cruiser, in broad daylight. 13 years they've gotten away with it, Jack replied. They probably thought today would be no different. 30 minutes later, Marie narrowed her eyes. We're in Sharp Park territory now. Jack leaned forward, spotting a familiar cluster of buildings ahead. There, that's the water treatment plant. The Sharp Park water treatment facility was massive. Concrete structures, metal tanks, and chain-link fences wrapped in warning signs. But Carl didn't enter through the main gate. Instead, he circled to a narrow service road behind the complex. Marie pulled off the highway, tucking their vehicle behind a set of storage units. From here, they had a clear view of Carl's patrol car through the fencing. He's stopping, Jack said. Carl parked near a stretch of tall grass and unkempt vegetation that bordered the facility's rear. He popped the trunk. Out came the wooden crate and the black plastic bag. He grabbed his shovel and headed into the brush, glancing over his shoulder as he walked. He's hiding it, Jack whispered. Let's move, Marie said. Keeping low, Jack and Marie slipped from their car and moved toward the fence line, using rusted equipment and thick brush for cover. Carl hadn't gone far, just 30 yards or so into the tall grass. From where they crouched, they could see everything. He was digging. The shovel sliced into the earth with practiced rhythm, each movement smooth and deliberate. Carl worked fast, his years of physical labor obvious in every motion. In under 10 minutes, he had carved a shallow grave, about 3 feet deep, 4 feet long. Then Jack saw it. Carl opened the crate and upended the black plastic bag into the hole. The contents spilled out, unmistakably human remains, bones, pieces of faded cloth, even a clump of what might once have been hair, 13 years buried, now unearthed, just to be hidden again. And then Carl did something that made Jack's blood run cold. He reached into the grave, plucked out a small bone, possibly a finger, and slipped it into his pocket. A trophy. Jack clenched his fists as Carl began refilling the grave, tamping the earth down with his boots. He scattered extra dirt, then covered the site with debris and grass. To a casual eye, the ground looked untouched. Jack and Marie retreated as Carl loaded his shovel and gear back into his trunk. Jack reached for the radio, but Marie stopped him. "Wait," she whispered. "Remember what he said to Richard. Something about putting it near those people so the blame would fall on them. Let's see where he's headed." Jack hesitated, then nodded. They needed more than just a body. They needed the full picture. Carl brushed off his uniform, climbed into his patrol vehicle, and, surprisingly, didn't leave the facility. Instead, he drove toward an internal access gate and flashed credentials to a bored-looking security guard. "He has access," Marie murmured. "How long has this been happening?" They grabbed binoculars as Carl's cruiser rolled toward an old building near the far end of the complex, a generator shed, long abandoned by the look of it. Its walls were stained with rust, windows boarded or shattered. Carl disappeared inside. 5 minutes passed. Then he emerged, carrying a rectangular package wrapped in brown paper. Jack exhaled sharply. "That's not trash, that's narcotics packaging." Marie was already on the radio. "Dispatch, this is Detective Estrada. Request a quiet check on the Sharp Park water treatment facility. Any flagged activity, recent reports, or tips, please advise." While they waited for a reply, movement drew their attention. 2 men stepped out of the generator shed, flanking 2 teenage girls. The girls looked scared, confused. They wore thin, mismatched dresses and kept their eyes down as the men pushed them toward Carl. Without hesitation, Carl grabbed each by the arm and shoved them into the back of his cruiser. "That's it," Jack snapped. "We call it in now." Marie didn't hesitate. "Dispatch, this is Detective Estrada. We have a confirmed 1099 in progress at Sharp Park Water Treatment Facility. Possible human trafficking and narcotics. Suspect is Deputy Carl Bowen, San Mateo County. Additional suspect is Supervisor Richard Hensley, Pacific PD. Request immediate tactical response. Secure both suspects. Copy?" "Copy that, Detective. Units en route. ETA 5 minutes." They maintained visual. Carl now stood talking casually with the 2 men. From his body language, this wasn't new. No nerves, no urgency. Just routine. Then a white van appeared. Old, beat up, no rear windows. Jack's breath caught. "Just like Belinda described," he whispered. Carl positioned his patrol car ahead of it, ready to escort the van out of the facility, using his uniform to give them protection. Jack stared. "They've been doing this for years." Marie nodded. "Look at how smooth it all is. No fear, no rush, just another day at work." The quiet shattered. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting louder. Multiple cruisers and a tactical van converged on the front entrance. The security guard had no choice but to open the gate. Inside, Carl and the van driver realized what was happening at the same time. Both vehicles surged forward, aiming for a secondary exit. Marie slammed their car into gear, joining the chase. Units closed in from all sides. The van driver panicked first, slamming on the brakes, throwing his hands up. Carl, trying to play it off, stopped and got out slowly, trying to look confused and official. "What's going on here?" he called out, putting on a performance. "I wasn't informed of any operation. I was just checking the area." Marie was already out, handcuffs ready. "Save it, Carl. We saw everything." "This is a mistake," Carl insisted. "Those girls, they were buying drugs. That's all. I was going to bring them in." Jack stepped closer, his voice like a blade. "You're quite the storyteller, Carl. Problem is, we watched you bury human remains 30 minutes ago. Probably Laura Monroe's." Carl froze. "Then you picked up a drug package and 2 trafficked girls. That's not coincidence. That's coordination." Carl's face drained of all color. "I don't know what you're talking about." Marie didn't flinch. The only mistake was thinking no one would ever come looking. She read him his rights as she led him to a waiting patrol car. The tactical team had breached the shed. As Jack and Marie approached, officers emerged escorting handcuffed suspects, hard-eyed men with the unmistakable posture of those long used to power. Even in custody, they radiated threat. Inside, the generator shed revealed its true purpose. A narrow staircase led underground to a basement level thick with the chemical tang of solvents and burned metal. What they found was shocking. A fully operational meth lab. Rows of lab glass, burners, tanks of chemicals, professional grade, capable of industrial-scale production. But it didn't end there. In a side room, they found more victims, women and girls ranging from their teens to mid-30s. Some had fresh wounds. Others bore the signs of long-term captivity. A female officer knelt beside them, speaking softly in Spanish, assuring them they were safe now. One woman, older and braver than the rest, looked up and spoke. "We worked the lab, packaging, cleaning, but the younger girls," she hesitated, gesturing toward the teens. "They were for special guests, new partners, monthly rewards for the officers who helped protect the operation." Jack turned away, the words sinking deep into his chest. This wasn't just about corruption. This was deliberate, organized, hidden behind uniforms and authority. Outside, medical teams arrived. The victims were helped into waiting ambulances. Evidence technicians flooded the scene, cataloging every vial, every label, every terrible truth. Jack turned to Marie. "We need to recover those remains before anyone else gets involved." They returned to the shallow grave Carl had dug earlier, this time accompanied by another officer. The ground was easy to spot, disturbed but not yet reclaimed by time. Using Carl's own shovel, they carefully unearthed what he'd tried to bury again. Bones, torn fabric, the fragment of a life taken too soon. Jack held the evidence bag with steady hands. "Laura," he whispered, 13 years. And now, at last, she was going home. Back at the car, Jack remembered what still needed to be done. "Belinda Carlson, we need her now. Her testimony ties everything together." Marie was already dialing. When Belinda answered, her voice trembled. "Miss Carlson," Marie said gently, "this is Detective Estrada. Carl Bowen has been arrested. We have the evidence. We know about Richard Hensley. It's time." There was a pause. Then, "Thank God. Yes, I'll come. We're sending a unit to escort you safely to the station." Jack keyed the radio. "Dispatch, this is Monroe. Requesting unit to 2855 Fairmont Avenue. Witness transport and protection." By now, the water treatment facility resembled a command post. Dozens of cruisers, tactical vehicles, medical teams, evidence technicians, victims receiving care. The web they had uncovered was staggering, an entire operation hidden in plain sight, protected by uniforms, rank, and public trust. "Let's get back," Marie said. "Time to speak with Hensley." The Pacifica police station buzzed with coordinated chaos. Suspects from the facility were being booked, reports filed, interagency units moving between desks. Jack and Marie handed off the evidence: Laura's remains, Carl's shovel, photos of the burial site and the lab. Every item carefully logged, every step documented. "Interrogation room 2, a uniformed officer told them. "He's waiting. Captain wants you both in." Through the one-way mirror, Richard Hensley looked smaller. The authoritative supervisor was gone. In his place sat a man slumped in a chair, hands cuffed, eyes darting nervously around the room. Marie led the interview. "This interview is being recorded," she began, setting the recorder on the table. "Present are Detective Marie Estrada, Sergeant Jack Monroe, and Supervisor Richard Hensley. Mr. Hensley, you've been advised of your rights." Richard spoke quickly, voice shaky. "This is a mistake. Whatever you think—" "What we saw," Marie interrupted calmly, "was you delivering a cash payment to Belinda Carlson. We saw you and Carl Bowen transporting human remains from San Pedro Valley Park. We followed Carl to a meth lab. We saw him pick up narcotics and take custody of trafficked victims." She leaned forward. "Ms. Carlson has already given her full statement. We have the chain of events. We have the evidence. We saw everything." Jack added quietly, "We followed you, from the park to the facility. You're done, Richard. Silence fell. Hensley's breathing grew shallow. Sweat darkened the collar of his shirt. Then Jack asked the question he had waited 13 years to ask. "What happened to my wife?" Richard stared at the table and for a long time said nothing. But when he finally looked up, there was something hollow behind his eyes. "Fine," he muttered. "You already know most of it. I'm tired of looking over my shoulder. 13 years. Might as well say it. Maybe I get a deal." Marie's pen hovered above her notepad. "Start from the beginning." "She pulled over a van," Richard said flatly. "November 18th, 1977. Routine stop, near Moss Landing. She didn't know the van was running product, from the treatment plant to the docks." Jack clenched his fists under the table but stayed silent. The driver panicked. Just a low-level guy, probably high, shot her through the passenger window, hit her shoulder, spun her around. She was bleeding, but she wasn't gone. "And then they called you," Marie said. "It wasn't a question." Richard nodded slowly. "I was already on their payroll. 2 years. I told myself I was just letting things slide, nothing direct. But that night," he rubbed his face, "I sent Carl, told him to fix it, get her out of sight before backup showed." "Carl killed her," Jack said. His voice had turned cold. "No," Richard said, his voice breaking. "I did." Jack went still. "Carl wanted to get her help, said she might live, but she'd seen the van. She knew the driver. She could name names. So I finished it." His eyes closed. "I used her own weapon. That's why the casing match department issued ammo." Silence filled the interrogation room, broken only by the soft hum of the recorder. "We destroyed her radio and dash cam," Richard said quietly, each word draining the color from his face. "Her body, we buried it at Middle Peak Trail, 2 miles into the park. Nobody hikes that far. It was perfect." He swallowed hard. "The cartel guys, they dumped her cruiser at Devil's Slide. Storm came through that week, washed away the evidence. Marie stayed composed. The blood in the trunk? We wrapped her in plastic, still leaked." Jack's voice was tight. "All those years, the monthly payments, they weren't just money, were they?" Richard shook his head. "Numbered drugs, favors, entertainment. The operation grew. More officers wanted in. Some got paid to stay quiet. Some didn't even need to be asked." Marie leaned forward, her tone sharper. "Names." Richard gave a bitter laugh. "You want names? If I gave them all, we'd have to shut the station down." And then the list began. As name after name poured out, Jack felt sick. People he'd worked with, trusted, laughed with, now revealed as co-conspirators. No wonder the investigation went nowhere. They hadn't just looked the other way, they'd buried the truth. "I need some air," Jack said suddenly, pushing back his chair. Marie gave him a look of understanding. "Take your time. We're not done yet." Jack stepped into the corridor, his steps unsteady. 13 years of not knowing, now crushed by the weight of knowing too much. Then he saw her. Belinda Carlson sat on a bench near the interview rooms, hands folded tightly in her lap. "Miss Carlson," Jack said, sitting beside her, "thank you for showing up, for telling the truth." "I gave my statement," she said quietly. "Told them everything. Richard's threats, the bribes, the night I saw Laura." Her eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry. I stayed quiet. I let fear win. I should be prosecuted for what I didn't say." Jack looked at her, really looked. The lines on her face, the pain in her eyes. "You were scared, intimidated, manipulated, and then you came forward." He gave her a small, genuine nod. "You helped bring this down. You helped find Laura. That matters, and it will count. Maybe immunity, maybe a plea deal. Either way, I'm grateful." They embraced, two people who had both carried the weight of silence. For a moment, grief met redemption. Then a forensic technician appeared at the doorway. "Sergeant Monroe, we need you to confirm something in evidence." Jack followed him into the evidence room. Tables were lined with items collected from the raids, tags, photos, bags, so many stories in sealed plastic. The tech motioned him to a smaller table. We'll send everything for DNA confirmation, he explained, pulling on gloves. But we found this with the remains. He held up a small evidence bag. Inside was a platinum heart pendant, tarnished but intact. Jack knew it instantly. Laura's necklace. She wore it every day of their marriage. His hands trembled as he took the bag. Through the plastic, he turned the pendant over. The back bore a delicate engraving. Jack and Laura, forever. The tears came. Not the angry ones he'd shed over the years. Real ones, final ones. This made it real in a way nothing else had. Not the bones, not the grave. This was Laura, worn close to her heart. She hadn't left him. She'd been taken. Behind him, the tech stepped back, giving him a moment. Eventually, Jack looked again at the remains. One bone had been tagged separately. We found that in Carl Bowen's pocket, the tech explained quietly. Finger bone. Looked like he kept it. Jack closed his eyes. Sick bastard. They'd worn badges, sworn oaths, and betrayed everything those things were meant to stand for. He touched the bag containing her remains, whispering, I found you, Laura. You're coming home. The tech nodded with quiet respect. What you did today, what you uncovered, saved those women. They're at Pacifica General now, getting help, getting their lives back. Jack nodded. That mattered. That gave this nightmare meaning. He confirmed the items for state testing, then stepped back into the hallway as Marie emerged from the interrogation room. She looked tired, but satisfied. He gave us everything, she said. Names, contacts, routes, payments. This is going to tear the whole department wide open. Good, Jack replied. It needs to be torn down, so it can be rebuilt the right way. Together, they stood in the hallway, watching as suspects were processed. Internal affairs agents arrived. The wheels of accountability had started turning. This will take time, Marie said. Trials, internal reviews, years maybe. Jack didn't blink. Then let it take years, but let's do it right. Marie checked her watch. The victims, we should see them. Take statements, but more than that. She paused. Let them know they're safe now, that someone cares. Jack nodded. Let's go. As they walked through the station, past evidence carts, case files, and whispers of betrayal, Jack reflected on what had been uncovered. Evil had survived for years because too many good people stayed silent, but not anymore. Laura hadn't died for nothing. She died because she did her job, because she pulled over the wrong vehicle on the wrong night and didn't back down. But the truth has a way of rising, just like her patrol car, just like the storm that unearthed her memory. That storm had names now. Belinda, who found the strength to speak. Marie, who refused to let the trail go cold. Jack, who never stopped asking. And justice, long delayed, had finally come ashore. The badge meant something. It had to mean something. And for Laura, for the women they'd rescued, for every person who put their trust in the uniform, Jack and Marie would make sure it did. Again,